Gentlemen of the Bigs, it is Monday, the 16th of September, 2019. The first round of the Bigs playoffs has come to a close, and we have ourselves an interesting Final Four. With me, as always, Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Joe. And you said it, you nailed it on the head right there. A very interesting Final Four. Very exciting in my position to watch some of, the amazing magical tricks you guys were trying to pull off here. But to me, Joe, the story is that the streak continues.
Mm-hmm. I'm still in it. The three-peat is alive, gentlemen. Somebody's got to come knock me out. And, we'll get to who has the opportunity to do that this week. But first, let's kick off with my matchup against Bobby Russo. I take a 14-5 win. Close categories this week. I won by a steal, 2 errors, and a save. Bobby did not win anything relatively close. We tied in triples and losses. On my bench this week, it was a bad week on my bench, Benjamin. It was very, very bad. 16 for 38. That's a 421 batting average. 9 runs, 3 doubles, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, and an error. The 13 RBIs is really huge because I did lose RBIs by 4, but other than that, nothing else plays. My moves this week, it was a ton of streaming pitchers. I got to 91 innings this week, Benny. I started with Trevor Williams, who gave me a bad start. Jacob Junis, who gave me a bad start. CC Sabathia was serviceable. Josh James was awful. Pair him with Joe Biagini, and my ERA inflates. There were a few guys that I was able to grab, like Tommy Malone and Austin Pruitt, who were bulk relievers that got me relief appearances, and I ended up winning that stat by 3. Finished it off with Justice Sheffield, who started off really well and then got it fucking blown up by the White Sox. And Merrill Kelly on Saturday was very good for me as well, 7 innings and a win. For Bobby on his bench, it was 5 for 20. That's a 250 batting average. 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Nothing to write home about there. Do want to give Bobby a ton of credit. He put the pressure on me on Sunday. He started 3 guys in Devin Smeltzer, Felix Hernandez, and then went after the relief appearances in Tommy Kahnle and Joe Biagini. He was coming for those relief appearances. I had to hope for the best that my lead would hold up. It did, but he put up a hell of a fight. The one thing I do want to give him credit where it's due. He did not have Mike Trout all week. The guy was out with a foot injury and ends up going for season-ending surgery now. He did lose Josh Bell as well late in the week to a groin injury. So 2 of his top guys going down for this matchup. That's the nature of fantasy baseball. You're going to lose guys late in the season. I lost Javier Baez before this week even started, so it's not that I came into this at full strength either, but comparing Josh Bell and Mike Trout to only Javi Baez, there is no comparison there.
No, there's no comparison. It's an unfortunate ending, but Bobby's got to be proud. He had a very strong year. To do what he had to do in the last 2 weeks, we still have to look up if that's a record to be as many as he was out of 6th place and put himself in there to at least, show up to the dance and, have a shot, give him the chance to knock you out and do something that Uncle Barry did in 2016, and that's the last guy that got to do it, Joe. So yep. I give him a lot of credit, and a lot would have still had to go right if he did have those guys to match up with your 319 batting average, with your 382 on-base percentage. It's just, you threw out 43 runs. That's typically, I'd say 40 and above is generally going to be tough to beat. Mm-hmm. So, I give the guy a lot of credit. He definitely did work hard, and he had an amazing year, and he's looking forward to next year, I already know. So, kudos to him. Unfortunate again with the injuries, but again, it's sad to see him go. But nothing that he should be disappointed about at this point. It's now a whole new story, man. But let's get to what he did on with his key players.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, Bobby, he had a great run in the final 2 weeks to get into the dance. Absolutely earned. We talked about it. We talked about that round robin with you, me, Jason, and Bobby, and we were concerned that somebody in that round robin wasn't going to make it, and looked up until 2 weeks before the regular.
You said someone was out.
Yes, I did. I said Jason was going to be the odd man out. I was wrong. It turned out to be.
You also said that no matter what, someone would be out.
Right. I was wrong. And Bobby proved me wrong. Somebody was falling out, and Bobby was in 8th place, well behind the pack, with 2 weeks to go, and he put together a hell of a run to get in. And
that's baseball, Susan. Again,
yeah, absolutely. He earned his way in, and kudos to him. He had a fantastic season. We love to see the rookie managers rookie playoff managers making it this season. With 3 this year. Fantastic season from him. Let's put a bow on Bobby's season here.
Sure.
Tell me about his head-to-head, his head-to-head stats and how well he did, and where his shortcomings were with this team.
Okay, well, as far as his offense goes, I'd say it was fairly impressive. 14-8 in runs with 1 tie, 9-11 in doubles, 4-11 in triples, 14-9 in home runs, 12-11 in RBIs, 9-13 in stolen bases, 16-7 in walks, 11-11 in strikeouts, so right up the middle there. Errors 12-9 with 2 ties. Batting average was 9-14. Could have been a little better there. And on base percentage 11-12. Across the board, I think solid. What about you?
I think it is pretty solid. That is certainly anchored by Mike Trout and Josh Bell this season. Let's take a look at his pitchers before we move to reviewing his draft and what he did all season.
Sure. Okay. 7-16 in innings pitched. 11-11 in wins. 10-9 in losses. 3-3 in complete games.
Okay.
12-9 in saves with 2 ties. Home runs was 12-9 as well. Walks given up 19-4, excellent.
Very.
Strikeouts 9-14. Errors 12. ERA 12-11. Whip 9-14. 14-9.
Okay.
And so whip 14-9. And RAP was 11-8 with 4 ties.
I find it interesting that he has a guy like Garrett Cole at the top of his rotation, and he had such a poor record in strikeouts.
Well, I think a lot of this is also because towards the end of the week, when you're winning in walks given up, you're winning in home runs given up, 10-9 in losses, but typically is right there.
Yeah.
He lost innings pitched a lot, and he lost strikeouts a lot. So those we say go hand in hand. Like we said, 14-9 with whip. So when you don't want to mess with that, you let the strikeouts go.
Yeah. When you look at Bobby's draft, obviously Mike Trout at the top anchors that team. That guy is an on-base machine. He's and certainly put together one of the best offensive seasons he's had in his career, with 45 homers and 104 RBIs, 110 runs scored, 122 walks, a 460 on-base percentage for the season. That's the type of guy you plug in and you set your lineup and forget he's there, and he's your center fielder every day. He followed it up with 2 starting pitchers, his 1-2 of Cole and Syndergaard, that he rode until the season was done. It's a great way to start when you have that luxury of getting Mike Trout as the number 1 overall player. Those guys basically had a season, bro. I didn't know it took a little bit of time, but basically made it every start. I think that's a really solid first 3 picks. Look at it now. Yeah, I mean Noah didn't have.
I understand Noah didn't have an ideal year.
Right.
You definitely he got banged up a lot and probably hurt Bobby in some weeks. But that's not the reason, ultimately, his season is over.
No, and at the end of the day, I think he got the AL Cy Young winner here in Garrett Cole in the second round. The guy's got almost 300 strikeouts, 17 wins, and a 2.62 ERA. at the end of the second round. That's an incredible grab there. But what I find interesting is that he follows that up with another center field only player in Lorenzo Cain. And I remember thinking, okay, that is trade bait. Somebody is going to buy into this guy and need him for their center field position. The problem is Lorenzo Cain had a really bad season. He hit 252 after coming off of 3, 4, 5 straight seasons of 280 or better. He hits 252. He has a 318 on base percentage with coming off of 5 straight seasons of 340 or better. Only 17 steals, 8 homers, 43 RBIs, only 69 runs scored. He did play the same number of games, 136 games. 4th round as his second offensive player in basically locking him into a utility role. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's almost the same thing that Ari did with Arenado and Vlad Guerrero. Like, I think it's just a cute move. And when you look at what was there in the 4th round after Bobby picked him, so Bobby picked him as the last pick in the 4th round. So the 5th round, he could have had Vlad Guerrero or Gary Sanchez or Robinson Cano or Gene Segura or Marcell Ozuna. There's a lot of other directions he could have gone there that pairing 2 center fielders together might not have been the best move for him. What do you think there?
Now, Lorenzo Cain is only eligible to be center field?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess. So you know me, Joe. I don't really draft outfielders very early. I mean,
right.
Mike Trout, come on, that's the exception
right.
to the rule. But that's just my strategy. And you said it with Ari with the Arenado thing. I did it once in 2006 with Konerko and Justin Morneau, both first basemen. And I won the championship that year because Morneau had the MVP in the American League. Konerko had, a typical 40 and 100 plus year. And, I was basically a juggernaut in 2006, and those 2 guys were a big reason why. So
yeah, I mean, when it works, it works out incredibly well, but exactly.
But again, it's a real shot, and of course, he might have had something with like Lorenzo Cain that he really thought that this guy was going to have an explosive year.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an intuition, and in this case, obviously not a good pick compared to some of the others, but you can't hit on every one of them.
Right. He then follows it up with
the guy, and I'll say that he stuck with the guy, and he could probably help them win a couple of weeks also, and put them in the playoffs.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I know you're not. I know you're not taking a dig at what he did. Of course not. I'm just saying, like, no matter what happened, like, he was in this place.
Sure.
Like, he was in this group that some guys have, still never gotten to. That takes sometimes years and years to finally get there. Bobby does in his 2nd year and got so close in year 1. So this is more of a celebration than like a sad ending for me, like it was for some guys last week.
Right. Bobby followed up his 4th round pick of Lorenzo Cain with 2 closers. He went with Roberto Ozuna, who was fantastic, and Sean Doolittle, who was also incredibly good for him. 2 winning teams, one in the AL, one in the NL. It's just a strong pair of closers there in 5 and 6. Then follows it up with 5 straight underperforming and underwhelming position players. Will Myers of all 3 outfield and 3rd base eligibility in the 7th round. Brian Dozier in the 8th round. Jurickson Profar in the 9th round. Danny Jansen in the 10th round. And Brandon Nimmo in the 11th round. Whether it's injury, whether it's, underperformance, whether it's Danny Jansen was a rookie, there's a ton of reason why these guys didn't exactly perform the way I think Bobby had planned on it. And yet it's a testament to Bobby's management that he has this many underperforming guys in the earlier rounds that he's capable of getting to the playoffs this way. I'm sure Will Myers was supposed to be his everyday 3rd baseman. He kind of wasn't. And by the end of the season, Will Myers isn't even playing every day. Brian Dozier, probably supposed to be his everyday second baseman. By the end of the season, he's not. He's got Ketel Marte, who he finds later on in the draft. Jurickson Profar, probably supposed to be a super utility guy, whether it be second, short, or the outfield. And this guy, incredibly underwhelming, a 211 batting average. Did have 20 homers this year, so that's something to look forward to in the late rounds next year.
A lot of guys are having 20 home run seasons, but it's starting to become a little closer to the average.
Sure. But this is back-to-back 20 homer seasons in Oakland. So it's something to be said. Like, 20 homers in Oakland is not the same as 20 homers in Yankee Stadium.
Absolutely.
Right. After Brandon Nimmo, who was injured for much of the season, he goes with Josh Bell, who for the first half was lighting the world on absolute fire and looked to be just as much an MVP candidate as Yelich and Bellinger. Second half, he kind of fell off, and now he's, got this groin injury. He's still, at this point, 37 homers, 116 RBIs. That will fucking anchor your infield at first base, and you pair him with Mike Trout, and there's no surprise that Bobby was at the top of the standings for much of the season because of this pairing.
Yeah, that was it. Those two guys just carried him the whole way.
Yep. Nick Markakis, I know he had last year. I know Bobby was really high on this guy after last year with the 43 doubles, the 93 RBIs, the 297 average. You just don't get the same production from him this year because he was injured so much. He only plays to this point in 107 games, only got 9 homers, still is hitting for a high average. There's an argument to be made that this guy is on pace to be a Hall of Famer and like the most underrated Hall of Famer we've ever seen because he's pretty close to 3,000 hits.
Wow.
Few more pitchers come off the board for Bobby here. It's like 5 straight: Anibal Sanchez, Chad Green, Yonny Chirinos, Steve Cishek, and Ryan Brazier. Brazier obviously was supposed to be a closer. That never panned out. Cishek was a closer and still is for now while Kimbrel's down. Chirinos was a serviceable starter for him. Did catch the injury bug there. Chad Green, the super utility thing that the Yankees use as an opener and a reliever, he's been good. Anibal Sanchez left Bobby's roster fairly early. I know I had him somewhere in the mid-season. The 19th round is where I'm going to give him his best pick of the draft. It's Ketel Marte. That very well might be his MVP of this roster, if not for, obviously, Mike Trout. But Ketel Marte, absolutely amazing season. He's got 32 homers, 91 RBIs, 96 runs scored, a 327 batting average. This dude just never stopped hitting.
Yeah, very consistent. I'm surprised by these numbers.
Yeah. Jed Lowry in round 20 was a disaster. Brett Gardner was an absolutely serviceable and downright good center and left fielder for him. 25 homers is a career high for him.
A career year in general.
Yeah, for a guy that we didn't think was even going to get playing time because of the crowded outfield, he plays every single day. 130 games this year, 450 at bats, 25 homers, 326 on base percentage, chips in with 10 steals. Like, the dude's what, like 36?
Yeah.
Adam Jones, Robbie Chirinos, and Zach Cozart finish out his draft. Altogether, it had its ups and downs, and there were plenty of spots where, had he gone in a different direction, maybe it changes the outcome of his season. But give credit where it's due. This guy managed the hell out of this roster. And, you belong to the playoffs, Bobby. You earned it, and damn good draft there. Let's go to key players for the week, unless you got something else there, Benji.
No, go for it.
All right. Key players for me, I'm going to give it for my offense. I'm going to give it to all 3 of my Chicago White Sox this week. Yohan Moncada, 500 average, 519 on base, 7 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, a homer, 6 RBIs, a steal, a walk, 6 strikeouts. Eloy Jimenez, 474 average, 545 on base, 5 runs, a double, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. And finally, Jose Abreu, 292 average, 333 on base, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. I won the vast majority of the offensive categories with the exception of home runs and RBIs, and we tied in triples. So, every single one of these guys scored a ton of runs, got me a bunch of doubles, and definitely gave me the average and on-base percentage. Pitching-wise for me, I'm going to give it to Zach Britton first. He led my team in relief appearances and had the best week, 2 1/3, 3 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.43 whip. Justin Verlander gives me another great week, 6 innings. Does take the loss with a homer, 2 walks, but 11 strikeouts, a 1.17 whip. And finally, Zach Gallen gives me 11 2/3, 2 losses, I don't like that, 3 homers, 4 walks, 14 strikeouts, a 1.20 whip with a 4.63 ERA. I highlight those guys. I won innings, I won strikeouts, I won whip, and I won relief appearances, along with saves and wins. These guys led my team in innings. They gave me, solid strikeout numbers and kept my whip down. That's the big thing. There's only a couple of guys that have a whip over like 1.2 this week. For Bobby this week, give him credit where it's due. Brett Gardner wore me the fuck out this week. 269 average, 321 on base percentage, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, and 10 strikeouts. Omar Narvaez gave him a good week as well. 316 average, 350 on base percentage, 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. And finally, Matt Chapman. I know he only hit 174, and I know he had 11 strikeouts, but he led the team in home runs with the exception of Brett Gardner. He was second in the team in RBIs, and he led the team in runs scored. I have to give that guy credit.
Yeah, and strikeouts, though.
Sure, but he lost strikeouts by 14, right? He won RBIs by 4. If not for Matt Chapman, he loses RBIs.
Yeah, but maybe it gets him closer in like another category.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I guess the other option is to give it to Robinson Chirinos. At the end of the day, Bobby only hit 250, and that's with a really, really strong Sunday. Like his Sunday offensively was really good, if I remember. Yeah, 375 and a 429 on base on Sunday. And Saturday, I think he hit incredibly well as well. 333 and a 371. So...
Yeah, he gave it a shot, and he took a couple categories as a result. It was impressive that he grabbed all these power stats.
Mm-hmm.
But, at the end of the day, that's what I like about the way our balance is in this league. Like, you could have the powerful week, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the week.
Right.
You still got to do other things. You got to, at least match up a little with some of the pitching stuff that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a whole lot that, it's unfortunate that, again, you batted 319. So a lot would have had to go right, and he was never going to bench Matt Chapman. I mean, he traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's here in the playoffs. Like, this is the time. Like, you got to perform well for him this week. He didn't. It's just an unfortunate thing. But I hear what you're saying. Like, still solid that he was able to give him the power here.
Absolutely. Let's talk about his pitchers real quick. The first one I'm going to hit on, he streamed Felix Hernandez against the White Sox at home. And, I saw that, and I saw how the White Sox were performing this week, and I'm going, Bobby, that is a bad stream. I was dead wrong. 7 innings, a walk, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned, and 0.86 whip. He gets a no decision there. Looks like a late inning comeback for the Mariners in this game. They end up winning 2-1. But it was one of those cases where I'm staring this down going, Bobby, that's a bad stream, man. That's going to be these guys who are clubbing the ball all over the fucking field. Moncada going 500 for the week. Eloy 474 for the week. These guys are killing Mariner pitching this week. And instead, Eloy goes 1 for 4 that day, and Moncada goes 1 for 4 that day. Just a And Jose Abreu that day, 1 for 4. Like he kept those guys in control. Gave Bobby the ability to keep his ERA low. That's ultimately what it is. He pitched to a 4.10 ERA. That's enough to get a win this week because I pitched to a 4.45. Jose Urquidy.
Well, yeah, but it's just that whip, the 1.14 from you, is just so impressive over 91 innings.
Yeah.
So like to match with your innings, but to still the ERA would have went as well. He only won 1 out of the 4 swing stats here. Again, like the power came out, but you got to hit for average. You got to pitch just a little bit better if you're going to keep your innings down. I understand the purpose better than anyone, to not have to not necessarily go for it with innings and strikeouts here, but tough to match your whip this week, Joe, over the amount of innings, and very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate that I got a lot of guys who, though they gave up a ton of runs, they didn't walk a whole lot of guys. I only had 24 walks over 91 innings. Again, I lose that stat.
Incredible.
But, when you look at the ratio of it, it's not as bad as it sounds.
Right.
I want to give credit to Jose Urquidy. I was really staring down that stream that Bobby grabbed him for. 5 innings, a homer, a walk, 10 strikeouts, a 1.80 ERA, and 0.40 WHIP. The start comes against Oakland. I'm looking at that going, that is a really, really great start. I just don't think that it was early on in the week, if I remember correctly. It was the 11th, so it was Wednesday. I had already made my bed, I think, with a guy that I was going to believe in. That's it. I had Sabathia, and the game got rained out that day, and I wanted to drop Sabathia for him, and I'm like, you know what? Like, let me just save my moves. Let me be a little prudent here with my moves and get what I want out of this. As it turns out, I also got Austin Pruitt there, who gave me 3 1/3 and a relief appearance. I got 4 relief appearances that day versus Bobby's starts there. So I liked what I was capable of doing that day, but that was an incredible start, an incredible foresight from Bobby to go get that guy. Finally, we'll give Garrett Cole his due here. 8 innings, a win, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.75 WHIP. Guy's been absolutely lights out all season. We talked about it during his draft, during the review of his draft. This guy very well could be the AL Cy Young. He's going to make a ton of money in free agency this offseason. Yep, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, man. Are we at the point now where we can say, like, that this is it? I mean, for you and me, and how apropos this is that you start the podcast in 2019, and here we go.
Here we go.
This is it. Like, you and me, we've been doing this now for, 13 weeks together?
13, 14 weeks. Yeah, probably somewhere in there.
And we danced in 2015 in the semifinals.
Uh-huh.
We know you got me there.
Uh-huh.
We did it again 2 years later in 2017. We know how that one ended as well.
Yep.
And here we go again. And it's unbelievable how these things work out. But here we are. Every 2 years we do this again.
We seem to match up.
It's exciting.
Yep.
It's exciting. I'm nervous as hell. I'm not going to lie, but I think you know how important this is to me, and I know that if you're going to go through this and do something that I think may never, ever be accomplished again, I can't imagine, you want to do it through the best competition. I think this team that I drafted and built, being a first overall going in, and I'll just segue for a second to say that if I after the season that I've had, if I don't get through this week, it's a failed season. But nonetheless, what you're doing right now and the run that you're on, it's incredible.
I have to say this much: I would much have preferred to face Mike Haber this week. I was really, and we'll get to Jason and James in just a minute, but I was really hoping that James McCloskey would take the win there so that he could face you this round. Because my thought is, if I lose, then I lose to Mike Haber, a former champion that can go on and win the championship. But if I beat Mike Haber, then I'm facing one of my two best friends in the championship for my third in a row. Not that I was looking past this week. What I find interesting this week, though, Benji, we talked coming down to the final weeks of the season about how Frank was due a win because he was losing so badly and so many losses were piling up. That's what I'm afraid of this week. That you're due a win over me. And it's been so many wins in a row that I've had and so many overall in the last...
What do we say that... I wish we knew since 2013 what that stat was.
It was...
Of how many wins you've had over recently.
I think you only have 3 wins since 2013 over me.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You know, if we include the playoffs. I am...
Right.
I'll say this. If my run is going to end, and I'm not saying it is because I'm going to play my fucking ass off, I'm, 1 win away from my 5th finals appearance?
2015 was the finals appearance. Oh, wait. Since when?
Since all time.
Your first championship?
Since all time.
Oh, all time? Well, 2006 against me.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. So 06.
Of course you do.
14.
I do not forget about that one.
14, 15, 17, and 18. So this year would be my 6th finals appearance if I can get through you this week. 6th finals appearance, chance for a 4th championship. The dynasty will continue. You know, I'm gonna make a top 4, another top 4 appearance here. Other than 2016 where I finished 5th, I finished top 4 every single year since like 2014?
Yeah.
So, you know, the dynasty continues. The dynasty lives on here, and I'm hoping to bring home another championship. I'm putting another plaque on another nameplate on that title there, Benny. You know, I've been saying
I have another trophy. That's just a couple of names on it. It doesn't have everyone. And the other guy that's gone back to back is Jay Ferraro.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wanted to get everything on one side, I didn't do separate plaques for Jay for those 2 years.
Uh-huh.
I said Jay Ferraro 2007 and 2008 with an ampersand.
Right.
Yeah. So I've been waiting for someone else to win the championship to get on that trophy because I don't know how many in a row because I'm not doing separate plaques, so it needs to be just one plaque for all the years. So I can't.
You can't make my nameplate until I stop losing until I don't win a championship, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's your chance, Ben. Here's your chance to end this thing. Here's the chance for you to get off of the losing streak against me, end a run that is unprecedented in this league. And you know what? You're not gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna whoop your ass this week.
Wow. Well, let me tell you something, man. If I go down, I'm going to take everything that you got to get me.
Absolutely.
You know as well as I do that if you were going to go through this and get to this point, you want to do it this way.
Absolutely.
But the 2 of us that have been talking for this long, that next week there's a chance, like no matter what, one of us will be talking about our final matchup.
Yep.
You think you're going to win? But let's go, man. We're not friends for the next week. We're the best of friends no matter what, but going into this day, once we hang up the phone, I'm absolutely coming for everything, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop. You can expect the toughest competition you've ever had.
I gotta be real. I'm gonna look right into the camera when I say this. When we finish this show and we hang up the phone, we will not talk again until Monday of next week. I don't.
Well, we can. You know what? When the first pitch is thrown on Sunday night, I think we can talk.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
When it's all over and dust settles and we know at that point, let's fate decide it. You know. So.
Yeah, we'll know where we stand at that point. But yeah,
right.
Like we won't talk again until Sunday night about what are we gonna call it? Like 8 o'clock Eastern. That's usually when
Yeah.
the first pitch is. So this is what we've been building toward. That's what this podcast has been all about. Me and Ben talking, and now here we are with this matchup in the semifinals. Amazing. Let's talk about, however, a really, really competitive matchup this week in the quarterfinals that ends up coming down to a tiebreaker. Jason Ashby, James McCloskey, two rookie managers here in the playoffs. Never been here before, and they throw themselves to a 9-9 tie. Before we get any deeper into this, we should probably talk about why Jason holds the tiebreaker. And for that, we have to go back 10 weeks to a matchup between these two in week 13 that ended with Jason getting a 10-9 win over James when he was the top dog in first place of the league. That week, the close categories, Jason won by 2 homers and a save. James won by an error, a loss, and a home run given up by a pitcher. And they tied in runs and RBIs. Jason on his bench left 6 runs, looks like 2 RBIs, and there wasn't really much else that played there because of the way the categories fell. He won quite a few offensive categories, if I remember correctly. For James, he went 11 for 45 on his bench. The interesting part was 9 runs and 14 RBIs on the bench. This was the week, Benny, that we talked about how Matt Chapman needed to be in his lineup, and he wasn't. On Sunday, Matt Chapman goes 3 for 5 with a double, a triple, a homer, 6 RBIs on the bench.
Wow.
Yeah. Matt Chapman, the same guy who's now on Bobby's team because of a trade. Chapman went 1 for 3 with a homer and 2 runs on the bench on Saturday, the 29th of June. It was an interesting week because of how much James left on the bench, and it ultimately ends up costing him here. But when you finally, when you come right down to it, there is one player that gives Jason one category to put him up 10-9. Because we can sit here and talk about how James could have untied these categories, but he didn't lose these categories. There is a category that he lost because of a play on Sunday, and it has everything to do with a trade that you, Benjamin, were a part of. And we talked about this off air. It comes down...
Great, and it just comes down to, all these different things that happened during the season that ultimately fold into this point that we are now. So, yeah, look, I realize that this trade now may backfire in a way that we never thought could possibly happen, because if this doesn't happen, maybe I'm not playing you this week.
Right.
So it's just that it's something like that when you try to
Well, and the trade we're talking about.
Try to evaluate something like that for me, Joe. It'll screw my mind up, man, because I can't really get into, because I'm very much a guy that has a hard time turning the page after a tough day of leaving guys on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up a starter and it blowing up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
These kinds of using a move on a hitter that ultimately goes 0 for 4 with 2 punch outs. These kinds of things, it's a little harder to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Same thing with if you make a trade with someone that it ultimately changes something else that who knows could have happened. But so far in the future, it makes me feel a little bit better that there was so many other things that had to happen, right?
Right. And to catch everybody up, the trade we're talking about here is the Raisel Iglesias for Trey Turner trade back in June. So this week that we're talking about, where Jason beats James by 1 stat, he wins saves by 1 thanks to a Raisel Iglesias 2-inning save on Sunday. He doesn't get that save. He doesn't have that. They tie. And the tiebreaker would then go to, if I'm correct here, Benny, was ERA? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's ERA after that.
So it's ERA for the season? or ERA for that matchup.
For the matchup.
Which, at that point, would have fallen to James McCloskey with a 2.51 ERA. Without that trade that sends Raisel Iglesias to Jason's team, who he ends up flipping and moving on to Jorge Polanco anyway. But he gets that save, and this is what we talk about all the time. You never know what stat or what trade or what move is going to affect things months later. Here it is. James McCloskey is bounced out of the playoffs because of a trade 3 months ago. As well, so let's get to this matchup. Close categories this week. Jason wins by a win, a loss, and 2 saves. James wins by a strikeout, a home run given up by a pitcher, and they tied in triples, steals, and relief appearances. Jason on his bench this week goes 5 for 30. That's a 167 batting average with a run, an RBI, a walk, 8 strikeouts, and 2 errors on the bench. Obviously, the nothing there plays because none of those particular categories were close. Other than the 8 strikeouts, if he gets another one of those, then things are a bit more easy for James on Sunday. Moves wise, it's the one that I think we need to hit on is on Saturday. He drops Blake Treinen, who you're familiar with, for Kenta Maeda, who I and most certainly James McCloskey is familiar with, because James McCloskey drafted Kenta Maeda. Why is this important? Maeda was traded to me in the Giants-Stanton trade, and I dropped him when he was no longer going to be a starter. And I partially regret that because immediately after that he got a 4-inning save. But he ends up getting picked up here by Jason on Saturday. And going into Sunday, Jason was down by 1 relief appearance. And who gets to pitch the 9th for the Dodgers in the Sunday night game against the Mets for a save? Kenta Maeda. That ties the relief appearance stat, makes it a 9-9 game, and sends James McCloskey home. For James on his bench, 1 for 6, it's a 167 batting average, a run, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. His moves this week did not have the Midas touch I think he wanted this week. A lot of the guys that he picked up offensively did not perform very well, and his pitchers were fairly bad as well, like Jordan Zimmerman. Eliezer Hernandez did give him a great start, but ultimately he just didn't have the Midas touch that he was looking for, that he had much of this season. I know, Benny, you want to talk about Sunday night and James's choice to play Bellinger and Conforto. Let's talk about it.
All right. I wasn't exactly sure what the thought process was going into starting those 2 particular guys when he had walks, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
RBIs, he needed 6.
Mm-hmm.
Doubles, he was down by 10. He needed 5 runs from these 2 guys.
Yep.
And strikeouts where Moore and Murphy are still playing. And that, to me, I know that I wouldn't do it. I know a good amount of people that wouldn't do it.
Right.
That one really, really surprised me, man. I understand that one actually ended up somehow working out, but just one more strikeout from one of those 2 guys, because Bellinger had 2 on the night.
Yeah. He was down.
He strikes out a lot.
Yeah, he had 3. He was up 3 strikeouts. It was 56-53 going into this game. And benching those guys would have guaranteed he'd win that category, and then he's just leaving it up to the relief appearances where it's Maeda against Joe Kelly. And in a moment, we'll get to what else could have happened, but to see those... What could have been done. To see those 2 guys in the lineup and every at-bat that those guys are coming up, you're like, do anything but strike out. Do anything but strike out. Like, you could mitigate that and just not play.
But why should you even be putting yourself in that position?
Exactly.
To hope for the stolen base. I mean, he was far and away going to lose batting average.
Yep.
He was far and away going to lose on base percentage.
Yeah.
So, just to me, if you're playing your guys and you're hoping that something doesn't happen, when like the chances are something that is going to happen for Cody Bellinger or Conforto to steal a base, I don't know. It just
or get a triple. That's the other hope.
I'd like to find out. You'll get to find out what happened there. I'm going to guess that he forgot. That's really my guess.
I don't want to use that. I don't want to use that word. I want to use because again, when this game started, I was standing at work with James McCloskey. He was staring at the computer screen. The pregame was on the television. Like, he's watching everything and he's paying attention. I think it's a case of like, you've rode these guys this far. You have to believe that if you're going to advance, these guys are going to be the reason why. And maybe, hang on. Hear me out.
5 runs?
Hear me out. I think it's a lack of experience in the playoffs where, okay, maybe he didn't have the foresight to see, I could lose this. I need to bench these guys. And that's something that comes by having that happen to you. It comes by, holy shit, I shouldn't have played these guys on Sunday because, and look, I'm absolutely a victim of it. I've done it to myself. So maybe this is a learning experience for James. Again, had a great season, made the playoffs and deserved to be there, led the league for over 6 or 7 weeks. You know, this is a learning experience for him. And this is a situation where, yes, he made a foolish play. It did not backfire on him, but it's something he can think about in years to come and in matchups down the line. The other,
he noticed that it happened. I'm sure he notices that he wins that stat by 1, but I don't know if he notices that he put himself in that position that it almost happened.
I agree with that.
You know?
I agree with that. I can absolutely agree with that maybe he doesn't even have, like, maybe he didn't have the foresight to see that happening. Or maybe he was hoping for the steal, or maybe he was hoping for the triple. That's a really long reach to try to almost sacrifice a stat to try to get one of those, you know, more lucky or what's the word I'm looking for? The more infrequent stats.
Coin flip type stats.
Yeah, infrequent. Yeah.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. The other thing that could have been done, and James did a fantastic job of maneuvering his roster in such a way that he had open roster spots on Sunday, right? He makes the move for Eliezer Hernandez. He makes the move for Jason Vargas and Michael Wacha. He's going for the win. He's looking for that. And in doing all of that, he also gives himself the innings category. However, because of that, he ends up getting the loss. But what I don't think, and I think Ben, you agree with me on this, what I don't think he saw was the possibility that he's going to end up fighting for relief appearances as well. Because...
Yeah, that absolutely, man. That stat was very close, it seemed like, all week. And that one was going to be up in the air no matter what. So, for me, you have to have every spot in your roster matter. You should not have one guy playing for you on Sunday that you know isn't going to be playing for you. In this case, it was Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And he can't be he can be on your roster.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're hoping that if you want him for the chance for next week, I do not blame you. You had the open right. You had 22 men on his roster, so he made those drops. He had the space. And it's just either at that point, I understand you're taking a risk. He did a good job with the streaming because he was risking other stats. They weren't locked up here, Joe.
Yeah, he had about 3 or 4 roster moves left and plenty of roster space. And to see Eduardo Rodriguez in his starting pitcher spot I looked at this before we came on air. There were 6 top relievers who have SP eligibility who all have 44 or more relief appearances this season. Cam Bedrosian, who's on the DL, so he wouldn't have wanted to pick him up. Matt Andrews, who was on waivers, wouldn't have the ability to pick him up. And then the next 4 guys were Derek Law, Sam Gaviglio, Brett Martin, and Josh James. All 4 of those guys have 44 to 48 relief appearances this year. And you know what all 4 of them have in common, Ben?
They all came into the game yesterday.
They all came into the game on Sunday. If James picks up any one of those 4 guys.
Right. Here's the thing. If you don't think you can go for the relief appearances because that's too much of a shot in the dark, I get it. But then use that spot for another starting pitcher to go for that win.
Yes.
I mean, either do one or the other. Because innings pitched, I understand it was like up in the air and like you want to solidify that or, you know, whatever it may be. You want to battle for that win, fine. You can get or go for the relief appearance. But every roster, not necessarily every roster spot, but every spot in your lineup, your rotation bullpen, for the 18 guys that you're going to be playing, they have to matter. They have to mean something. Not when your season is on the line, every single freaking spot, they need to matter.
Yeah. And let's look at what exactly was up for grabs on Sunday. I wrote this all down before Sunday started. Runs was in James's favor 26-25. It ends up in Jason's favor 36-31. Triples were tied. That didn't change. Steals was in Jason's favor 5-4. James got a steal to tie that category. Strikeouts were tied. James gets 1 less on the day. On base percentage was 304 to 302 in James's favor. Innings pitched 52 to 49 in James's favor. Wins was 3-2, didn't change. Losses was 4-3 in Jason's favor. It ends up being 5-4, so each of them got a loss. Strikeouts remained in James's favor. He just extended that. And then relief appearances was 10-9 in Jason's favor, so James gets 2 relief appearances. He would have needed 1 more to get there. And the move of picking up a starter or a reliever with starting pitcher eligibility is the move that he needed to make there, or another starter to try to get a win.
Right. For that spot, and then finally you have other roster moves to fill because you have a short roster. You look at these other relief appearances and think, well, when's the next time Joe Kelly's necessarily going to come in? It's possible he comes in 2 nights in a row. Maybe that's the guy, that has to sit and get another reliever that you believe is going to be more probable.
Mm-hmm.
There's, a good amount of time that Shane Green's the opener?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not Shane Green. It's Chad Green. Is that his guy, or is...
No, Chad Green's on the waiver wire. Shane Green is the setup man in Atlanta.
Right. Well, that's a guy that he comes in very situationally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So... he was 13, 14. All right, so maybe he could have left him in because he didn't play in a couple of days.
Right. Hansel Robles got him a save on Sunday, got him a relief appearance. Joe Kelly didn't pitch. Taylor Rogers has arguably been one of his best relievers all season. He pitches in the doubleheader, so maybe you think he doesn't come in. It comes down to, do you think the Twins are going to win on Sunday? And I'm sure he left him in the lineup there. Marcus Walden does pitch on Sunday, so that gives him that relief appearance. Ultimately, it comes down to managing the bullpen better than he did. Joe Kelly had pitched in 2 straight games, and 3 of the previous 4.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of feel like Dave Roberts was going to go away from him and give him the day off. It's not unheard of that a guy goes 3 straight and 4 out of 5, but with a team that has their division locked up and they're just basically coasting for the playoffs at this point, you want to have your bullpen healthy. This is a way to get Joe Kelly healthy.
I agree. Yeah, it's a great point. That's a great point, man. And just at least I know that I don't want to lose that stat. And I'm going to make sure that every one of my relievers, there's a better chance than not that they're going to come in that day.
Right.
So 2 days in a row, knowing that already, I know that that's not my guy. For that day, the Eduardo Rodriguez play, these little things, they add up, man.
Yeah,
they just add up.
They're
So,
the difference. They're the difference between, they're the difference between a consolation bracket and a championship bracket, and they're the difference between a playoff team and a championship team. That's really what it boils down to. James has made the jump from being in the consolation bracket or in the middle of the pack or at the bottom of the standings like he has been in years past to a playoff team. He's earned the right to be, talked among the playoff contending managers in this league. To get to that next level and say, okay, I'm going to be a championship contending manager. These are the moves that he needs to have the foresight to do. And look, I'm not faulting him. He had a great year. Let's not forget that. Let's put a bow on James's season.
Yeah, and we can close that out if you'd like.
Yeah, let's put a bow on his season here. Talk about his heads up matchups.
All right, so let me start with the pitching.
Sure.
12 and 10 in innings pitched, 10 and 9 in wins, 11 and 10 in losses, 2 and 1 in complete games, 13 and 9 in saves, 11 and 10 in home runs given up, 8 and 15 in walks given up, 12 and 10 in strikeouts, 15 and 8 in ERA, 13 and 10 in WHIP, and 6 and 15 in relief appearances. That's pretty stellar.
The 6 and 15 in relief appearances, though. That's
right.
That's it.
That could be worked on with harder management.
Yes, that's it.
Personally,
that's if nothing else. If James takes nothing else from this season, this is what he needs to learn. He needs to learn the bullpen.
Yeah, streaming relievers is important.
Yes.
And look, the guy made the playoffs anyway. So at the end of the day, here he is. But I certainly think that that's definitely something that if you just get another one here and there and be just another guy, then your seed is different,
And look, he doesn't need to go 22-0 like you. Look, I'm where I am, and I went 9-12. But
right.
If you just get closer, just get a little bit closer, and that's literally what the difference is. Tell me about his offense.
Right, but before let me just take out of that.
Sure.
If we just put that aside from 8 and 15 walks, just over 500 across
the board. Yeah.
Not like overwhelming on most of the 12 and 10 innings pitched, 10 and 9 wins, 11 and 10 in losses.
Right.
11 and 10, but he built the bullpen and then 13 and 9 in saves. Because he did that. The 12 and 10 in strikeouts because he worked hard for those innings. So 15 and 8 in ERA and 13 and 10 in WHIP. This is all very impressive.
That is impressive. That is impressive.
So to me, all things considered, he had a great pitching team. Ryu was a brilliant pick. We'll get into that draft later, but I give him a lot of credit for that. As far as the offense, it's 10 and 10 in runs, 12 and 7 in doubles, 9 and 8 in triples, 14 and 9 in home runs, 10 and 11 in RBIs, 15 and 5 with 3 ties and stolen bases.
Nice.
13 and 8 in walks, 10 and 13 in strikeouts, 9 and 10 in errors, 12 and 11 in batting average, 13 and 10 in on-base percentage. He, 1,000% to me, put together a very strong playoff team.
Yes.
The contention, it was there. It was there for him to be playing today, man.
Yes.
That's for sure. That's what's unbelievable about this.
And, we talked about it all season long, that James McCloskey put together a great team that just never got healthy. If it ever got healthy all the way with the team that he had assembled, he would have been an absolute destructive team. Let's look at his draft.
Oh, yeah.
Let's look at his draft.
Before that, also let me just say that he led our league in ERA with a 3.44.
Yeah.
And tied Mike in WHIP with a 1.20. So, That's not easy, especially when you're going to be winning, going over 500 in strikeouts and innings pitched. That means he went for it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, he was going for it, and he still was able to keep the ERA that low. It's terrific, and it's a good reason why he got to play last week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's look at his draft. He starts off, now he's at the back end of the draft. He was drafting 15th out of 16th in the first round. And I remember sitting with him in the draft, and he goes, I'm going outfield heavy. And I said, okay. So he starts off with Aaron Judge. And as soon as Josh takes Freddie Freeman, he says, well, I know I'm getting one of Giancarlo Stanton or Bryce Harper to pair with Aaron Judge. And I'm like, that is incredibly dangerous that you're doing that, because that is a dangerous pairing to have at the top of any roster. So when Harper goes off the board, he takes Stanton. Now, both of those guys miss incredible amounts of time. Imagine what this team would have been if these guys were healthy all year. He goes third round and takes Cody Bellinger, who might be the NL MVP this year. So those top three guys, as soon as he locks in the third pick with Bellinger, I said, you may have just put together 150 homers. Like, it's 120. In my head, I'm thinking 40 apiece. Like, that's 120 homers. That's an incredible top three. At the same time, it's like 600 strikeouts. But you take it. You take it. It's 300 RBIs. It's 120. It's at least 100 homers. You know, but it doesn't work out. Injuries happen.
Right.
His fourth pick is his ace in Jameson Taillon, coming off a great year in 2018. Guy misses basically the entire season. You know, how many games did he start? 7? Maybe? Exactly 7?
Right.
You know, he absolutely. Gene Segura and Johnny VR are his next two. Middle infield, fantastic picks. Joey Gallo was on pace to have a career year before his injury. You know, the dude was hitting... Look, Joey Gallo always hit right around 200 with 40 homers. This year, he was hitting 250. Imagine that 50-point jump on somebody like Pete Alonso, who would go from 250, 260 to 310. It'd be amazing. That's the type of improvement that Joey Gallo was putting together this year before he got injured. He goes Charlie Morton, who at one point was leading the AL in ERA. An amazing pick there. Jake Lamb, okay, he got hurt as well and ended up getting dropped. Kenta Maeda and Hyun-Jin Ryu, back-to-back LA Dodgers pitchers. And I remember talking to him about this, and I was like, you sure you want to do that? Because these are guys that don't pitch full seasons. You know, if you get 130 innings out of each of these guys, I think you'll be happy. He goes, yeah, but they have to be healthy for a season at some point, right? And here's James with Hyun-Jin Ryu's 2.35 ERA over 168 innings this year. You know?
And what round was that?
That's the 11th round. That is the 11th round he gets Ryu. And Maeda in the 10th. He then goes with a couple of Minnesota bats, Jonathan Schoop and Byron Buxton. Buxton, hurt. Schoop, he ends up trading for Jose Ramirez, who gets hurt. 14th round was Nick Pivetta. He was a disaster. This is the second year in a row that Nick Pivetta has been a disaster. He has an ERA north of 5. He's now a reliever and not very good at that. He goes with a couple of reliever here in Drew Steckenrider, who was supposed to be the Miami closer. That doesn't work out. Sonny Gray in the 16th round. Great pick. Unbelievable pick. He turned his career around. Couple more relievers. Willie Peralta there in the 17th. Brad Keller, who was a Kansas City starter. That's a great pick. He gets hurt. They shut him down. 19th round is Hunter Renfroe. Great bat. Hit 30 homers, but just isn't playing in San Diego anymore because he's so inconsistent. 20th round, Evan Longoria. Throw him back on the waiver wire. He's not what he used to be. Jesse Chavez in round 21 as a reliever. CJ Cron was a great pick in the 22nd round, but again, another guy who spent time on the DL. Probably, I think he hit 30 homers this year for Minnesota. It feels like everybody hit 30. Okay, he hit 20. He's hit 24 so far. 23rd round, I remember him sitting there going, I don't have a catcher yet. So he went with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. He threw him back, and, he's sort of gone catcher du jour for much of the season. Taylor Rogers in the 24th ends up being a closer in Minnesota, and Yandy Diaz was a great pickup in the 25th round, another guy who hits the DL. If you put all of that together, along with the trade that I made with him, where he ends up getting the closers and Chapman and Conforto, he got healthier through that trade. He does not get healthier in the Kluber trade. He does not get healthier in the Jose Ramirez trade. Those two certainly, coupled with as many injuries as he had this season, are part of the reason he ends up in the 6th seed. Is definitely is part of the reason that he's out at this point. This is one of those teams that I think if you were to put this team next season or put this team last season, this could have been a championship roster. It was a great draft.
I mean, we don't know what would have happened against those particular opponents.
Yeah.
Like for those 7 days.
Yeah. It was a very good draft. I will give him that. It was a really good draft.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to key players for this matchup. For Jason, who won the week, we'll talk about Jorge Polanco. 389 average and on-base percentage, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, and 4 strikeouts. Rougned Odor, 278 average, 350 on base, 5 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Victor Robles, 350 average, 409 on base, 4 runs, 3 doubles, an RBI, a steal, a walk, 4 strikeouts, and an error. Pitching-wise, I've got to give this to the Kenta Maeda pickup to start with, as it's only 1 inning, or it's only 2/3 of an inning, a save, a walk, a strikeout, and a relief appearance. The funny thing about the walk comes with 2 outs in the 9th. And I texted James as soon as that walk happened. I said, if Maeda gives up a walk-off homer right here, you tie losses, and James would end up winning. So in theory, James had to be rooting against his own favorite team in order to continue his fantasy season. Obviously that didn't happen, but it was there. Johnny Cueto, Jason picked up as well. 10 innings, a win, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, nothing earned, and an .070 whip. 5 innings apiece against Pittsburgh and Miami. What a hell of a way to come off Tommy John surgery with 2 really good appearances. He gets Atlanta in Atlanta next, and that might be a much tougher test, but this was a really good pickup for him. Finally, Hector Neris, 3 1/3, 3 relief appearances, a loss, 2 saves, a walk, 4 strikeouts, 2.70 ERA, 0.90 WHIP. He led the team in relief appearances and ended up getting the tie there. I give it to him. For James, we'll go Cody Bellinger here. He carried him all season. Another great year. 261 average, 346 on base, 4 runs, 3 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Jonathan VR, 240 average, 296 on base percentage, 4 runs, a double, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. And finally, Aaron Judge, 385 average, 600 on base percentage, 6 runs, a double, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 strikeouts. James didn't hit well. He only hit 234 for this week with a 319 on base. But he won walks, he won strikeouts, and he won errors. So I find the guys that had more walks than errors, or more walks than strikeouts, or kept their strikeout totals low. He also tied steals, so I highlighted a couple of guys there. Pitching wise, Eduardo Rodriguez, we talked about him being the only guy in the lineup that was guaranteed not to help him on Sunday. But he certainly did his job the rest of the week. 12 2/3 with a loss, a homer, 2 walks, 21 strikeouts, a 1.42 ERA, and 87 WHIP. Hyun-Jin Ryu all season has been lights out for him. 7 innings, 6 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.29 WHIP. And Hansel Robles, 3 1/3, a save, a walk, 3 strikeouts, 3 relief appearances, nothing earned, an 0.30 WHIP. You got anything left there, Benji?
Oh, I just want to thank James for an awesome season.
Absolutely.
He worked his ass off, and I really appreciate all of that. Definitely a very improved manager. Nice to see him break this non-playoff streak, and he made it here. So give him kudos for that. And as far as Jason, he awaits a very tall task. Arguably, alongside you, the best manager in our league. So consistently in the playoffs, so many times in these semifinal matchups. So a ton of experience. For Jason, he's playing with house money, in my opinion, because he did what he had to do. I mean, he's never been here. I know it's been a long time. Some will say, look, you are in this spot, man. You got to go win it now. I would say that about myself as well. My God, it's been long enough. I've had so many opportunities. I'm in the semis. I got to win one. I got to get through you, For Jason, you could argue the same thing, but at the same time, boom, he's going to be playing for third place no matter what here. This is an amazing year. He's done something, who knows if he even thought he could accomplish. I know he's confident, so, sure, but it's just, until you're there, just like me and the Mets, I don't know if I can see them winning the World Series because I've never seen it, so you don't necessarily have that vision, understanding, what a parade for us would be like, Joe.
Right.
And Jason is also a huge Mets fan, so it works there. But for him, I wish him good luck. He's got a tall task, but he's got, I think, the matchup that he wants, because when Mike Haber has Mookie Betts on the shelf, Edwin Encarnacion, doesn't look like Justin Turner is going to be playing. This is the right time to play Mike Haber, but it's Mike Haber, and the guys are going to be there in free agency. The guys are going to be there for him to pick up in the pitching probables. The options are going to be there for all four of us to try to, beat the other guy. They're out there. If we make the right 13 pickups, we're going to win.
Absolutely.
No matter what.
Absolutely.
That's how it is. You can control your destiny, even despite what the guys that you drafted that you have on your roster right now, you can change them. You can go with your favorite 13 guys for this week, because there's no tomorrow after Sunday for us, And it's really exciting, man. It's funny how Mike Haber, who wasn't even playing this week, and I'm getting texts with him on Sunday about Jason and James's matchup. You were updating me, so was he. And it's just crazy. We're talking about a guy that doesn't even have a matchup this week, but he's following very intently. So you already know that he has a game plan. He has a way that he's going to strategize against Jason. So we'll see what they do against each other. It's going to be a fascinating matchup.
Yeah, there is one thing I do want to hit on, that the Final Four is down to you, me, Mike Haber, and Jason. And there's, if I could say this like Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. And Jason is definitely the underdog here, because you, me, and Mike all have one thing in common. What is that?
A championship.
Exactly. Jason's definitely the underdog, and like you said, playing with house money. Jason, if it's not going to be me, go get this fucking title, dude. Go get this thing and put yourself among the champions in this league. There's very few and far between left anymore. A lot of our champions have moved on. What is it? You, me, Mike Haber, Mike Sherman. Is that it? That's it. There's only 4 of us in the league, and 3 of us have made the Final Four. That's something to be said about this league. That there's a bit of a hierarchy that needs to be broken. And maybe Jason's the guy. Maybe this is the season. He's up against 3 of the strongest managers in this league. Go get it, Jason. Go get it.
He's going to have to beat 2 of them.
He's got to go through 2 former champions, guaranteed. And if I get through you, he's got to end a dynasty in order to do it. And if you get through him, if you get through me, he's got to beat the 2 best teams in the regular season this year. There's a story there. There is a story to be made out of that run. Go get it, Jason. I'm rooting for you. All right. Do we want to cover the consolation brackets very quickly there, Benjamin?
Yeah, Yeah, please. Let's do it.
Okay. So, Ari Nisman, Bumpin' Uglas took on Nick Homan, handed the week away. Ari gets a 10-9 win here. Close categories. Ari wins by a steal. Nick wins by a triple. An inning pitched. A win. 2 losses and 2 saves. And they tied in doubles and errors. Obviously, there are no roster moves here. We locked the rosters because, for obvious reasons. So...
Well, let's talk. Can we talk about that? Do we have a
Sure.
moment just to
Absolutely.
before we break into the bench and key players? But Ari won this matchup, and looks like these guys were actually trying.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that they couldn't make roster moves. But let's talk about it, Joe. Do you think this is a benefit? Do you think this is something that we need to look at going forward? You've been in the playoffs a lot, so I guess maybe it's tougher to see the outlook. From the outside, if you'd want to be able to make those ad drops, how it affects other teams. What's your personal take?
I look at it like this, and I think, and this is something that I'm just coming up with on the fly right now.
Okay.
The bottom 4 teams I completely agree with need to be locked. They have nothing to play. They are done for the season. There's no reason that they need to be adding or dropping anybody. Lock those 4. What if you lock the 2 teams on the consolation bye for that week as well, and you let the 8 teams that are playing matchups and the 2 guys that have the bye in the championship round make moves?
Okay. The reason why is because then you're telling me that you're going to take an advantage that you're supposed to have as the bye to be able to make moves and pick what you need to solidify your team, and you're going to take it away from them so that when they play that consolation matchup, they are shortchanged where the other team, could have potentially made moves for that next week.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Locking 7 and 8 doesn't seem right either.
No, I don't think it can. I think it's discriminating.
Yeah.
Kind of. You got to either do it all or do none of it.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody who's been in the playoffs a ton, I like the way it's done here. You lock everybody but the 6 that are playing for the championship, and this is, let these 6 fight it out. Don't let other managers who did not make the championship affect the outcome of the championship. It's a fair.
While we're on Ari, Ari texted me after you and I got off the phone, finished the podcast on Monday, and he said, "Why can't I make moves? Did I miss something?" And I said, "Yeah, you're usually in the playoffs, so you don't know this. But I actually locked the teams that didn't make the top 6, so that on Sunday, when you need a starting pitcher, 11th place didn't just steal it from you."
Right.
So that was, and it started in 2015 when I was against you, and Uncle Barry grabbed somebody that I needed, and I said, "Wait a minute," and that triggered this whole thing. And I think since 2016, and that was the year that Uncle Barry actually took you out.
Yep.
And then you texted me, and you said after you went out in the first round, a quoted text, "The last time that this has happened," but you said, "Lock me up, Benny."
Yeah.
And I locked your team. I locked the teams that are playing for 5th place now. And we can argue that maybe it's a good idea that whoever doesn't make it into the final should be locked also. I understand that it's third place. In third place, you get a trophy. It's something.
It means
It's
something.
something, Joe.
Yeah.
But, and it's a huge but, man, that if I wanted to, and I'm not in the final, and you are, I can do everything I can to stop you
To stop the
from winning your
championship.
third championship.
Yep.
I can do that without trying to win. My whole goal is just to stop you.
Yep.
Now, am I in the right? Is that ethical? Is that moral? Is it what you want, Joe? Is it more practical for us to say, you know what? These guys are not playing for first place. In real life, in baseball, they don't get to do that anymore. There's no third place. It's the finals, it's the World Series, and that's it. So it's something that I've really considered. I still haven't locked for third place, whoever doesn't make it out of that semifinal. But it's something to think about. It's a discussion that I think is deserved, and it's long overdue.
Yeah, I think it's a valid argument, you know, especially in the case that we're talking about here. If I make it to the finals, and you know, for the sake of argument, let's say it's me and Jason in the finals, and you and Mike Haber, you know, make the decision. I'm not going to play for my. Now, I'm not saying that you guys would do this, but if you guys decide we're not going to play against each other, we're going to play to get Joe to not win his third in a row. You could do that. And knowing the way I play this game, it's not rocket science to figure out how to do it.
Sure.
You know?
Well said.
You know, if you want to fuck me, go pick up every fucking starter that plays every single day, and I'm going to have a problem. It's not rocket science. And if you get a couple of guys in the playoffs that aren't playing for the championship that decide we're not going to play against each other, we're going to play to try to not have Joe win the title, that could happen. I'm not saying it would in this league. But I think I agree with what you're saying here. Locking out everybody who's not playing for the World Series, not playing for that trophy, I think they need to be locked. I think I'm with you.
Yeah, it's something to really consider, because if we're going to be doing it, why don't we just do it the whole way?
Because let's flip the script for a second. Let's say I get knocked out this week, and for the sake of argument, Jay Ferraro has come back and has taken Jason's body at this point. Well, now Jay Ferraro is going for his third championship. I'm the only one with 3 titles. I could just as easily do the same thing.
Sure.
So, again, I think I agree with you. I think that the guys who are in the playoffs, they're the ones who are playing for a championship. They're the ones who deserve to be making these moves. And as soon as you are not playing for the championship anymore, lock them up. Lock them up. Send them to the golf course, as you know, major leaguers would say. We're going to go play golf now.
Mm-hmm. But let's look at the other side of it, though. They're at the same time, well, I want to play for third place. I want to play for fifth place. I want to play for seventh place.
Sure.
That's I want something to play for. Unbelievably, Frank said, "Hey, I played the triple yesterday with Jorge Soler." I'm like, I cracked up. I'm like, what the hell?
He's still setting his lineup, but he's not playing anything.
Right.
Well done.
That's how much love there is from some of these guys. The fact that I get that text from Ari, "Hey, what's going on?" Some guys, we don't need to name them, but some of them, once it's over for them, they don't care about the consolation prize because there's only one thing. I'm one of those people, man. If I don't make the playoffs, I really don't check at that point. Other people do, Other people do, and wish that there were those add drops. So it's a long overdue discussion, and it deserves, just more heads into it. More people's voices and what their opinions are. I'd love to hear them. And going with less moves next year, how that affects it. Will we be able to survive with 12 or 11 moves down the stretch for a semifinal, for the final? These things where we know that players will get days off more regular, that players get injured, that pitchers get shut down. These kinds of things. We know that they're going to happen, and they're especially going to happen towards the end of the season. So this is something that Uncle Barry rallied for. What about making the league 21 weeks instead of 22, or 20 weeks instead of 22? We like the grind of that 22. We got to see over these next 2 weeks, Joe, if it's manageable.
Yeah.
Are the guys still there for you to get? Is it way too much that we're grabbing in the bottom of the pile for this, for starting pitchers, for all these things? I think that's where we really, as we need to compete against each other, Joe, we have to take this long outlook of the league and where it should be in our future and what's best for it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We have to really take inventory of the guys that we're picking up, and is it worth it for me to be playing, I'm just going to throw a name. Is it worth it for me to be playing Justice Sheffield for a championship? Is it worth it that we're throwing out, I'm just going to pick a guy that's starting today off of that I'm not picking up, but You know, we'll throw the probables
Right.
out there. Like, do you really need to have Garrett Richards on a roster after coming off of a Tommy John surgery, who hasn't pitched all season, and he's making his debut on September the 16th? Like, is that something we need to have in this league? You know, I don't know.
If it's an option, yeah, you need it, you know, and if
Sure.
you need that start, then, like, you need it, you know, and I like that even still, like, maybe with the 13, with the 12, the 11, whatever, that there's still that chance that you have enough moves to carry over to prepare for the following week, even if it's, you know, week 9 of the season, you know, and you're like, you know what, let me just use this one right now for tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, so I like having those extra. It's really something that we say that it kind of goes week to week. There are times where you know that your guys have a shorter schedule. Maybe a few of your players don't play on Monday or Thursday.
Mhm.
You know, geez, now I'm using a lot of my moves for position players, and I might shortchange myself when I need to go for innings pitched, when I need to go for a relief appearance.
Right.
So still trying to find that happy number. You know me, I like things divisible by 3, so 12 is more tempting than 11 for that reason, as well as for this time now, for the playoffs, for the semis, and for the final. Same thing with innings pitched. Like, what is 42? Is that just too big of a number, even though we're adding some pitchers? These are really, really important elements that we have to look at. And then finally, Joe, if there's a possibility next year for us to change the time for the free agency when guys become available, because we talked about the monopoly that you and some of the West Coast guys would have on grabbing guys at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maybe there's a way to find a compromise time that it would work out for almost everybody. Now, I don't even know if that option is available on Yahoo.
Right.
It's something that I really have to look into, and it's something that I don't recall ever being an option in front of me when I set up the league. So a lot of things that we got to tackle here, and this is a really exciting time for our league, because right now we have 4 of the guys that have, you know, with all due respect to a lot of managers, the diehard feel for, like, from these 4 managers, how hardworking they are into this, like, every moment of every day. I don't think any of us missed one move as far as, like, that guy should have been playing today, even though he has the one guy has the X and his game started and, like, you woke up too late or anything. I don't think the 4 of us, maybe there was that one time with you with you know, after your trip here, and then you came back, and then I guess you had jet lag and whatever. But aside from that, I don't think the 4 of us had missed a move at all. So I think it's good that it's the 4 of us that we could really kind of evaluate how many moves are really appropriate, like what's appropriate going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love the 13 moves this year has been really because it's almost divisible by 7. It's a case of, like, I can make 2 a day, and somewhere I'm just not going to make 2. You know, one day I don't have to make 2 moves. You know, I really, really appreciate 13. I can see it going down to 11. I can adapt. I mean, 12 would be nice. You know, then that's okay. I just don't make 2 moves one day, or I make 1 move twice in a week. It's doable. You know, as far as the innings minimum is concerned, I'm with you on upping it. I'm with you upping it to 42. I would even, personally, I would say go as far as 45, but, you know, let's incremental steps. You don't want to make that big a jump immediately.
Right.
Because that's...
a 5-inning jump with a relief pitcher being added so that we have 10 pitchers total.
Yeah.
Flipping an SP to become a P
Yep.
is automatically a 7th reliever if you want it. I'm looking even here. It's funny that Ari and Nick couldn't make any ads, but yet still Andy. I said Andy, but I meant Nick. Nick threw 50 innings,
Yep.
and Ari threw 49.2.
Yeah.
And Ari isn't necessarily a guy that street starting pitchers. He was a guy that I was almost feeling like he might not make his minimum because he was reaching, but he always kind of had the math figured out. He always seemed to have the arithmetic that he knew how many starters he needed to reach the minimum and be safe with it.
Sure.
So, like, a guy that I might be concerned was in because of the decisions to have Keuchel and Kimbrel and have them sticking into the roster every day. We talk about guys that are just wasting space.
Mm-hmm.
Those were two guys, but like even still, he managed to make the minimum and some.
Yeah.
So the only fear I have is this 3-batter rule and how that affects. And we'd have to look again. I still think that the average for a relief pitcher is probably 2 per week. I would think that.
Yeah, I would think that's a fair way of looking at it. Yeah, 2 relief appearances a week. That's probably 2 innings. It certainly could be less. It certainly could be more. But I think that's a fair way of thinking about it. That 2 relief appearances a week per pitcher. That's 10 innings for her 5 relievers you've got. It's...
Right, so you have 7 relievers, and we say that it's 2 on average. Maybe it's even a little more, but let's just say that it's 14 innings amongst your relievers. Then you're saying just get 28 from starting pitching. And the chances are that maybe you do have another reliever, that you do have another one in the SP spot. So, you might only be asking for 25 out of your starting pitching. That's fair to ask for. That's basically 5 starters. I think that's reasonable.
It's 5 starters at 5 innings apiece. Yeah.
Reasonable to ask for, and it might even be less. I mean, I could get 42 sometimes with only 2 pitchers,
You
have. I have a deep bullpen. So it's definitely possible. It's sometimes you're saying it's kind of brutal that you're making me reach for guys that I don't like in free agency and use a move there when just because some of my pitchers is only going once a week this week, and that's a disadvantage point. But that's when you got to use your free agency move. That's just when the time is to do it.
Right.
And it's about just figuring out who the right guy or guys are that are going to get you closer to the minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yep. As for the time change that you touched on a little while ago, I recognize that me and anybody else who lives on the West Coast does have an advantage, that it's only midnight when the change happens, and for the most part, I'm awake at midnight because I work nights, and I have the advantage of being able to jump in there and grab whoever I want at midnight 01, midnight 04, midnight 30, before anybody else on the East Coast is even conscious. And it served me well. I'm not gonna say it's not an advantage. It absolutely is. We talked off air about what would be a fair time. Is it 6 a.m. on the East Coast? Is it 8 a.m. on the West Coast? To where I'm getting off of work at 5 a.m. Maybe that's the right time. I'm home by 5:30. Maybe 9 a.m. is the right time. So it's 6 o'clock my time. Maybe make me stay up a little bit later to make it happen. I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is that it's an advantage that I've had the luxury of for a long time, and if it's capable of being done, I think it's something that does need to be mitigated. I'm perfectly cognizant of the fact that I have the advantage and I've utilized it and it's gotten me where I am, that maybe it's something that we need to look at, if it's even possible. Because there's no guarantee that Yahoo even has this capability of changing this.
Joe, and I want to say one thing, man. Despite it being an advantage, I don't want that to take away from anything that you've done in the last 6 years. It's still incredibly impressive, and you still got to pick them right a lot of the time. It still takes a lot to be in the playoffs this many consecutive years. Is it an advantage? Has it helped you? Sure, but it's not everything.
No, I'm not saying it is, but it's certainly something, and it would be a disservice to those that I have beaten in the playoffs and those I have beaten in championship matchups if I didn't at least address that.
Sure.
All right. After all that, let's get back to Ari versus Nick. Ari went.
That was it. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
It was important, though.
It absolutely was. Absolutely was. I don't disagree with you. On Ari's bench this week, 6 for 37. That's a 162 batting average. 4 runs, 2 doubles. A double, a triple. 5 RBIs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. The double and the triple would both play. He missed out on the triple because of his Dubral Cabrera on, is that Wednesday or Thursday? He played Castro at second base, who went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. For Nick, 7 for 46. That's a 152 batting average. 2 runs, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 13 strikeouts. The 2 doubles also play. Again, they tied there. Not that I was... Honestly, like, I wrote all of this stuff down. I didn't particularly pay attention to, like, where the plays could have been because,
Sure.
you know, it is what it is. Key players for this matchup, Ari had Albert Pujols, who's having some sort of resurgence here in September. 375 average and on base, 2 runs, a double, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, a strikeout, and an error, which is surprising because he gets the error playing first base in Cleveland, or against Cleveland at home. I would have thought that, like, Pujols would be your DH most days, but then I remembered Shohei Ohtani's a thing, so they don't have him play the field at all. Nolan Arenado has carried him all season. This week is no exception. 500 average, 652 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 7 walks, 4 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Brian Reynolds, who will be the runner-up for NL Rookie of the Year. 241 average, 346 on base, 5 runs, 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. My apologies, those average and on base were wrong. It was 241 and 290 on base percentage. Pitching wise for Ari, Anthony DeSclafani, 7 innings, a loss, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned, an 0.14 whip. It looks like he only gave up 1 hit over those 7 innings, and it was the hit that drove home the only run of the game. The game was in Arizona. He loses 1-0. I believe that game was against Zach Gallen, was it? No, Merrill Kelly on Saturday. Just a brutal loss there. No walks, 1 hit, 1 earned run. And that was a Jarrod Dyson sac fly that drives home Nick Ahmed, who,
wow.
Nick Ahmed triples as the only hit of the game, and they drive it home on a sac fly. Ridiculous. Walker Buehler gave him a good start as well. 12 innings. He actually gave him 2 good starts. 12 innings, a win, 12 strikeouts, 2 walks, a 1.50 ERA, a .67 whip. And finally, Dallas Keuchel, 6 innings, a win, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, 1.50 ERA, 1 whip. Dallas Keuchel, 3.35 ERA, 1.30 whip, 96 innings, 81 strikeouts. Is this a guy that was worth holding on to for half a season?
Well, it's up in the air.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Moving on to Nick's team. Joey Wendell had a good week for him. 333 average, 364 on base, 4 runs, a double, a triple, 3 RBIs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and an error. George Springer, 273 average, 333 on base, 5 runs, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. And finally, Eddie Rosario, 273 average, 333 on base, 5 runs, a double, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and an error. Pitching wise for Nick, he's put together a nice little rotation here that if this were a keeper league, I would be kind of afraid of this rotation. Jake DeGrom obviously anchors at 14 innings, a win, a homer, a walk, 19 strikeouts, an 0.64 ERA, and 0.50 whip. Shane Bieber is a really nice number 2, 12 2/3, a win, 4 homers you don't like, a walk, 12 strikeouts, a 3.55 ERA, a 1.34 whip. He gave up 3 homers in a start against Minnesota. The better start was in LA, 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, a 1.29 and an 0.71 whip. Finally, Sandy Alcantara, who is the reason that Chris Levy is not in the playoffs this year, this week goes 7 innings, a loss, 6 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, a 1.29 whip. Kid's incredibly talented, and he was kind of the centerpiece of the Marcell Ozuna trade with the Cardinals. This kid is putting together a really nice late run this year. He's going to be a sleeper pitcher to pick up next year.
Oh, he's definitely a major leaguer. We know it.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is definitely a legit pitcher that I think is going to be around for a while. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Could you see that these 2 guys managed their team this week? Was there an indication that
Absolutely.
even though they couldn't make adds and drops, that they were still flipping their lineup around.
Oh, absolutely. We'll see in a moment, but if you're not playing your lineup, you're gonna have a better batting average than a 162 and a 152. You're not gonna have, as close a matchup as this was if one of them is not playing. Credit to these guys.
Just another reason why you see these guys that are still doing the work even though they can't make ads drops, and just bring up that conversation again, like, should we add them back? Should we? It's a lot to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, all they're playing for is seeding at the end of the season. I get it. It's something. It is something. But when we have a league this deep and a league this prestigious.
Prestigious, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think you want the outcome of the championship determined by a team fighting for 10th place.
Right.
It's not.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
It's just that there are some that disagree with us.
Yeah.
I don't know what the majorities. I don't know who. I couldn't divide. Necessarily. I know we can say right now, Frank probably wishes that there were ad drops in the constellation. I know that, not that we give a crap, but like Serge a couple of years ago hated it. I think Uncle Barry, is a guy that would like it. So I do know that there are some that, they're not the only two guys.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know what the right answer is, but it's worth the discussion.
Sure. Let's move on, and we'll see here what I'm talking about with teams that don't pay, that don't care and aren't, moving their team along. That's Mike Sherman taking on James Santangelo. When it ended last night, Mike Sherman got the win 12-8. However, it now sits at 16-5 because James Santangelo did not get his innings minimum. He ends up throwing only 27 1/3 innings, meaning he loses every single pitching category, regardless of whether he won it or not, and that gives all of those stats over to Mike Sherman this year, or this week. For Mike on the bench, close categories, I guess they only matter offensively now. So James wins by a triple and a walk. Oh no, that was a walk given up by a pitcher. They tied in errors. And so yeah, James won by a triple and they tied in errors. That's it. For Mike on the bench this week, 2 for 14. That's a 143 batting average with a run, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 steals, a walk, and 5 strikeouts. None of it matters. For James, he goes, here's where we see exactly what happens when you don't set your lineup and you just let it play out. He goes 22 for 76 this week. That's a 289 batting average. 18 runs, 4 doubles, 6 homers, 13 RBIs, 2 steals, 13 walks, 20 strikeouts. The 18 runs play, the 6 homers play, the 13 RBIs play, the 13 walks play.
Yeah, and just enough innings to make the minimum would have played.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I started off the week labeling exactly who it was every day, and by the time I got to Wednesday the 11th, when Moustakas hit 2 homers and drove in 5 RBIs on the bench, I went, he's not playing. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to keep doing this.
I knew that going into it. I think we talked about it last week. You said I'll pass.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about the Jimmy post that went up, and it's important. Let's just bring it up because it was something that, interestingly enough, the other 2 men in this match that's still playing, brought up to me. You're the only one amongst the 4 of us that didn't text me about this.
Yeah.
Here's the message on the board. Good luck to all. I will not be participating in the consolation round, and if it affects my ratings, so be it. Have fun. Jason and Mike took this in a way that I did not. They were like, well, is he trying to be like pissy or I just said, he was. I thought the good luck to all was genuine.
Yeah.
I thought it was genuine, and then just saying, I will not be participating because it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
And he's entitled to say it. I don't have a problem with it.
Neither did I. And I think that's probably why I didn't text you. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks, dude. Appreciate you putting into this season what you did. And, we'll see you next year. Like,
right.
It doesn't affect anything. Sure. Like, he's not going to,
No.
If he fall, like, I think the rating statement is what's going to rub somebody the wrong way, Like,
Right.
if he falls from 8th to 11th, does it matter? No.
No.
Like, at the end of the
I don't
day,
think so.
if he doesn't care, nobody's going to care that he almost made the playoffs and ended up 11th. Nobody's going to care next year. Nobody's going to remember it.
No.
They're going to remember
it.
Yeah, they're going to remember who won. They're going to remember who was in the final, and they might remember who missed the playoffs by a game.
Right. That'll absolutely come up, and then also just maybe some memorable matchups that happen in the playoffs, and any like in your personal season, like Frank's personal season, Chris Levy's personal season. They'll remember, oh my God, I remember when I played this guy instead of this guy. He ended up hitting the home run on Sunday, and I won the week.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like some of those moments to them personally, they'll remember. But you're right. It's just who won, who was in the finals, some memorable classic rivalry matchups, and who barely made the playoffs, who barely missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not really this consolation bracket. I never paid attention to it.
Yeah, and the consolation bracket doesn't matter except for those who want to play and want to improve their stat, and nobody's going to hold that against them either. Like, I think it's just a case of like, if you want to play, play. If you don't, don't. I think it's a case of, you know, Frank probably would love to have the opportunity that Jimmy did and has passed on it. But Jimmy earned that opportunity to pass on that.
That's right. Great point.
You know, we're gonna lock teams. He's not gonna be able to do anything with his roster other than set his lineup. Maybe that doesn't interest him, and that's fine. Plus, let's also recognize something. Football season has started. A lot of guys in this consolation bracket are probably stepping away from this because they're focusing on their fantasy football teams. I think that's a realistic statement to make. Like, I think Jimmy going, I'm not going to participate. Let me, and he doesn't say it, but the implication that I got was, I'm not going to participate. You know, I can't do a whole lot. It's not going to matter in the long run. Let me go focus on my football teams because it's week 2.
Right. Let me enjoy the rest of the baseball and the football season.
Yeah, and not, you know, stress over September call-ups and spot starts and bulk relievers for another 3 weeks when it's not going to matter. You know, I don't take offense to what Jimmy said. I still say the guy had a great season, and I'll be happy to have him. I'll be happy to go up against him next season. Like, no issues whatsoever on my end. Key players this week for that matchup we were talking about between Mike and James. Offensively for Mike, Luke Voigt had a good week. 360 average, 448 on base, 8 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Malik Smith, 267 average, 389 on base, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, 4 steals, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. And Ronald Acuna, 233 average, 343 on base, 8 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 steals, 5 walks, and 11 strikeouts. Ronald Acuna, quick little question about him. He has 39 home runs and 36 stolen bases with a 278 average, a 361 on base, 97 RBIs, 121 runs scored. Is he the number 1 overall pick next year?
I still think it's Trout, but you can't argue that he's a first rounder, firstly, and very arguably a top 10. How many outfield positions does he have eligible for?
I believe he is eligible at all 3.
Okay. Now, I don't know if he gets all 3 next year because I don't know how often he played in each spot.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can find that out.
Okay.
I can find that out momentarily.
We have the time.
Fielding. So let's see. All right. There's got to be a breakdown of this. Here we go. He has played 34 games as a right fielder. 190 total innings as a right fielder. He has played 793 innings as a center fielder. That is a total of 95 games he's played there. And 46 games as a left fielder, 333 innings. He's going to be triple eligible next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that definitely ups his value for sure.
Absolutely. You know, when you get Christian Yelich and Mike Trout and maybe Cody Bellinger as the other conversation pieces for the top pick next year, yeah, that's something to think about. I don't know that Christian Yelich is going to have center field eligibility next year. I doubt that, and Mike Trout is always going to only be center field eligible. So, I mean, if I have the first pick next year, I'm pretty sure it's going to come down to Trout and Acuna, because a guy who's about to put up a 40-40 season is really hard to pass on. Moving on, we'll jump to Mike's pitching. Bear with me a moment. I somehow clicked off of it. Mike Clevinger gave him a good week this week. 8 innings, a loss, a homer, a walk, 10 strikeouts, a 2.25 ERA, and 0.88 WHIP. Zach Plesac, complete game, shutout, 9 innings, a win, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 0.67 WHIP. Had this been in a matchup that was competitive and his opponent was playing, that would have been an absolutely enormous complete game to get in the playoffs. Finally, Luke Jackson gave him 2 relief appearances, all clean, 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, and a .5 WHIP. For James, Marcus Semien gave him a good week, 379 average, 438 on base, 10 runs, a double, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. Yasmani Grandal, 318, 516 on base, 8 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 9 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 2 errors. And finally, Howie Kendrick, 500 average, 556 on base, 3 runs, a double, a homer, 4 RBIs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. Again, he didn't make his minimum. Fuck going after his pitchers. He only has 27 innings to pick from. Benjamin, if you've got nothing left on this, you know what time of that week it is?
Well, I do have something left. I'd like to get a little history lesson going, if it's possible.
Let's do it. I love history.
Uncle Barry expressed in a message board he couldn't really remember a lot of the classic matchups. So I didn't think it's necessary to talk about the classic semifinals or finals, because that's not what just happened. I think it's more appropriate to talk about some of these first-round classic matchups that occurred.
Absolutely.
Well, funny enough, so one of the ones that Uncle Barry was in was 2016. Now, that's the one that he knocked you out. That was actually a 14-4, thrombing. I don't know
he whooped my ass.
That do you remember anything from that particular matchup?
I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't. I remember that season coming off of 2015 when I lost in the championship, thinking I'm going back, I'm going to try to do this. And I remember, I do remember Uncle Barry just having a ridiculously good offensive week, but I can't put my finger on anything else. Like I'm pretty sure it was one of those, like 15 homer to like 6 homer type of games, and it was a really bad loss for me. One of the worst I've had, in recent memory.
Right. In that situation.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's unfortunate that we can't really look.
Yeah.
Yahoo does not allow us to look at the matchup and the statistics, how many runs, how many home runs, all of that when they got tallied up. It does show us the rosters, which is interesting to look at, some of the guys that were on, your respective teams. That same year, Mike Haber, that was going for, another championship. His last was 2012. This is 2016 anyway. He beats Donato on Sunday. What I recall from this matchup is that Donato was supposed to just play Carlos Beltran or not play Carlos Beltran, whichever one was happening on Sunday. Either he was not starting and he was in the lineup, but the vice versa. If he switched the whole thing, then he would have gotten the stats needed, and Donato actually would have taken him out.
Okay.
Another one I recall is 2017, Donato versus Uncle Barry. This was the year that you won as Luke Roy Jenkins.
No. Luke Roy Jenkins was 2014. 2017 was, and hang on a moment, I have to sing this one.
Cars, no.
1877 Cars for Kids.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thanks. Okay. So Corey Kluber actually threw a complete game shutout for Uncle Barry. And remember, this is when we had shutouts.
Yes.
So Uncle Barry wins this matchup in 2017. The final score 11-10.
Yeah.
So the complete game shutout played.
Yes.
And it was, I mean, I think I've talked about it on the show in other weeks, just that was one that, you know, I think that I didn't say, like, this is bull crap. Like, he got a guy to pitch, you know, the game of his life that he needed to pitch, you know? So, not the game, by the way, Corey Kluber's throwing some incredible gems in the playoffs.
Sure.
So that was an unfair statement.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was
fantasy world.
Yeah, it wasn't Mike Fiers streaming a no-hitter, right? Like it was an ace.
And I do believe this was during the time where the Cleveland Indians were going for that crazy win streak.
Yeah.
So there's that as well, that it was like a magical time where Corey Kluber needed to pitch like that. You had a big one in 2018. That's last year, actually, where you took out Smoke and Mirrors. That was Andy. That was one that I think I recall that he had a lead on you, and you had to climb back pretty late on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And you won that first round.
Yeah, I remember distinctly that particular matchup. It was a really rough one, and I was pretty frightened of it, you know, given that I had faced him the year before in 2016. Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah.
No, you 2017.
Right, 2017.
2 years in a row.
Yeah, I faced him in the first round each of those 2 years, and one year I beat him 17-2. I absolutely trounced him on my way to my second title. On the way to the third one, he had a much better team. I was up against a much better, you know, much more experienced manager at this point, and you know he took it to me, and I get a very close win there. I don't quite recall what it took on Sunday to get the win, but from there it was.
But it did require, I think you did have to win it on Sunday.
Oh yeah, I had to get.
2015, a matchup with my brother and I, one where I remember just pacing around my Toms River Vincenzo Drive house that's no longer ours. But I just remember going up and down the steps, going through it, because it was the last couple of days that I was going to be living there, man. Like,
oh, wow.
It was funny. Like, we moved, it was the closing of the house was a couple of days, you know, a couple weeks after, I think. But I'm just walking up and down the place and just, like, watching, you know, that ticker. Wasn't even watching the games. I could have. You know, Corey Seager and Kyle Seager hitting doubles for me and getting home runs. All of a sudden, I took RBIs from him. Like, all this crazy stuff that needed to happen. It ends up being a 9-9 tie. Relief appearances was one of the categories that I either won or tied. And obviously, I won during the season, so I had the tiebreaker. Now, Ari had Andrew Miller in the night game. Ari decides to sit Andrew Miller because we thought that the tiebreaker was ERA, and I didn't know the rules. Shame on me.
Right.
Now, again, this was the final year where you couldn't make moves the day of. You had to make moves the day prior, Joe.
Right.
So there's nothing Ari could do on the day to change things. But his assumption at that point was, now I think that either losses was close or home runs or walks, and he was like, well, I'm not going to risk a stat that I'm leading in to play Andrew Miller, but he benches him, and he never comes in the game. But if he did, Joe, and Ari had me saying congratulations, good luck in the next round, you know, everything and say goodbye, and then he benches Andrew Miller, and if he came in and got that relief appearance, and Ari would have been the guy to move on and play, it would have been a whole different story. And I'm really glad that happened, because I would not have been able to live with that even to this day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would have been tragic to see that type of loss happen due to a misunderstanding of the rules.
Right, and it's my own fault. It's something that I should know about, but in this case, it's just something that fortunately it didn't come back.
Yeah.
So that was good. Little things like 2013, the champion Sweet Quaid of mine that was the eventual champion. He stopped Mike Haber from going back to back because Mike won in 2012. He loses in the finals to Greg in 2013. Incredible finish there, but it was the first round. He won 10-8 over Quinn Hushin. And then the final one that I'd like to bring up was 2011 myself. I played Greg Drobnis in the first round. This was the year that I got in the sixth spot on the last day, went through 2 rounds, beating Greg Drobnis and then Dan Drobnis in respective weeks, eventually losing the final. But in that first round, I'm playing for a Mets game in the night game. Miguel Batista is the starting pitcher my opponent has for the Mets.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Right. I'm up by 1 win. So if a win happens, I'm out of the playoffs. Miguel Batista got rocked that day. The other thing that was going on is that I was either tied or ahead in doubles, triples, and home runs. And my opponent, Greg Drobnis, had Jose Reyes. So either a win from Miguel Batista or an extra base hit from Jose Reyes, and I'm out of the playoffs. Neither happened.
It's shit like that, man. It's one stat, any different way that it can really change a matchup. I do want to, as long as we're gonna, before we cut this show, I want to tell you, Victor Reyes hit a triple.
Yeah, I was aware of that, man. I know. I'm watching. Believe me, I'm watching.
Yeah, you'll see when the show comes up. I have a moment where I recognize that Victor Reyes has tripled. You'll see it when you watch.
Really?
Yeah, you'll see when you.
While I'm talking.
Oh yeah, the whole time, the whole fucking time. You'll see. I'll even timestamp it for you when I post this.
All right, great.
All right, Benny, it's time for best and worst of the week. Let's talk about best pitchers this week. Tell me about it.
All right, one that I don't think you pinpointed on with when you were talking about your pitchers, but Jose Barrios, he had an awesome game. 7 innings pitched, a win, didn't give up a run, a .43 whip, 4 strikeouts, just the 1 walk. Pretty impressive start. It was against Washington. It was at their own park, I believe. So
yeah. It was at home in Minnesota. It was a dangerous start, I'll say that much. But at the end of the day, it was one of those I feel like I have to get this start in.
Good for you. That's risky.
Thank you. For me, I'm gonna point to Garrett Cole. I mean, Bobby got 8 innings, a win, 11 strikeouts, and a .75 whip out of this guy. The start was in Kansas City. Garrett Cole's been lights out all season, and it's just another great start from that guy. Honorable mention to Jason's start of Yu Darvish Thursday in San Diego with 14 strikeouts over 6 innings. Best hitters this week? Tell me about the best hitter.
It's hard to ignore a guy that's helped you continue the streak this week, man. Yoan Moncada went 13 for 26. That's a 500 average, a 519 on base percentage. 7 runs, 2 doubles, got you the triple, a dinger with 6 driven in, a stolen base to boot, a walk, 6 Ks.
Yep, I'm gonna point it to Aaron Judge, who kept James as in it as he could be. 385 average, 600 on base, 6 runs, a double, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Honorable mention goes to Brett Gardner with his 4 homers and 8 RBI. But he only had a .231 on base percentage. So, worst pitchers this week. Who you got?
I'll give it to Jordan Zimmerman for James. Now, James won a lot of these pitching categories in 1 innings pitched. He had 2.51 ERA over 68 innings. It's incredible, as well as an under 1 whip, a .88 whip. It's astonishing that we're talking about that there was a bad pitcher that we can point to, but the reason why is because he just needed 1 more win. He could have gotten it from anybody. And this guy, Jordan Zimmerman, he didn't help. He had 5 innings pitched. He got a loss. He gave up a bomb. He had only 3 punch-outs, 7.20 ERA, and a 1.60 WHIP. I don't know. Again, it didn't really affect him that much, except for the fact that James needed a win. He needed the W from one of his pitchers. This was against Baltimore in your own park. That's a winnable game.
Yep.
So it's unfortunate.
Absolutely. I'm going to give it to 3 pitchers from me, from my team, because, I pitched to a 4.45 and it should have been a fucking whole lot worse. Let's start with Josh James, who does not record an out, gives up a home run in a relief appearance, infinite ERA, infinite WHIP. Then I'm going to move over to Joe Biagini, who also did not record an out, gave up a walk and 3 homers, 5 earned runs total, infinite ERA, infinite WHIP, and a relief appearance. And finally, I'll give it to Jacob Junis, 5 innings, a loss, 2 homers, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, a 9 ERA, and a 180 WHIP. You take those 3 guys off my team, maybe it's a hell of a lot better, and maybe I get the win in ERA, but I'm not going to bitch too hard. Let's talk about worst hitters this week. Benji, who you got?
Yeah, and I'll make it quick because I think we only have about 4 minutes left here on the 3-hour mark. 4 for 23 from Matt Chapman. Unfortunately, Bobby needed a lot more from the guy he traded Kluber for. Got him to the playoffs, helped him get him there, but unfortunately just did not produce enough. 174 average, 269 on base, 5 runs, 2 dingers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, but 11 big punch-outs. He needed more from him. 2 home runs is helpful. It certainly helped him in getting that home run category, helping with the RBIs, but again, he just needed more on the batting average side. That's where he suffered.
I'm going to point to Bobby's play of Ian Desmond, who went 1 for 14. That's an 0.77 average and on base. A run, a homer, an RBI, 3 strikeouts. Just not enough to get it done. Benji, we've got about 3.5 minutes left. It's that time of the week. I think we're agreeing on this one. Who's your manager of the week?
Joe, I don't want to take anything away from you, man. What you're doing is incredible. We said it enough. The streak is amazing. It's just that what Jason did here, picking up Maeda, doing what he needed to do, playing against the score, fighting against a really tough ERA, a really tough whip, and a really tough team all season. But he outplayed him, he outmanaged him, he outperformed. So I got to give it to Jason here. He definitely earned it.
You hit it on the head. I have nothing else but more praise to add for Jason this week. And you know what? I even wrote it in my notes. Jason Ashby or James McCloskey, whoever wins that matchup is manager of the week. Guys, the playoffs are upon us. We are coming down to the Final Four. 3 former champions and a first-time ever playoff appearing manager. Somebody's going to go home happy and 3 guys are going to go home heartbroken. Let's see what happens. Benji, as always, thank you for hosting with me again. And I hope your entire team shits the bed this week.
Oh, I appreciate the kind words, Joe. Most of them. And I'll say that, dude, no matter what happens, it's a special end to the story to one of the 4 of us. Can't wish, I wish you the best of luck, man. I really do. I think it's special no matter what happens. I'm coming after you, man. I'm not going to stop for anything. This is going to be the toughest I'd ever have to work to beat someone. I understand that, but it can be done. To beat me 3 times in 1 year, Joe, it's not going to come easily, man. I'm going to make you work for it. I've proven that I belong here. I think I've proven to the rookies, that I can play with the big boys, man. Like, I've been in the playoffs. I've been in this spot 3 out of the last freaking 5 years, and I've lost the same damn guy. It's you, Joe. You are my Achilles heel. You are the thorn in my side, and something's got to give, damn it. It's got to give, and here we go. Good luck to Mike and Jason on the other side. It should be a magical ending no matter what. Good luck, dude.
Yep, absolutely. In all honesty, best of luck to you. It is difficult to beat somebody three times in a season. Guys, until next week, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you next week.